Hello, I'm Associate Professor Dr. Deng Jun. I'm glad to have the opportunity to give you a lecture. Today's lecture is about China and the G20. Everyone knows that G20 has been a hot topic in the recent years. When we talk about G20, the first thing that comes to our mind is the G20 Hangzhou Summit. Today we will discuss China and the G20. This chapter can be divided into 4 sections, namely an introduction to the G20, second, achievements made by the G20, third, China's role in the G20, number 4, remarks by the President Xi Jinping at the G20 2020 summit. And we will also discuss China's initiative. The G20 Group of 20 is the international forum that brings together the world's major economies. Its members account for more than 80% of the world GDP, 75% the world export, and 60% of the world population. The G20 consists of the G7 nations, Canada, France, Germany, Italy, Japan, the United Kingdom, and the United States, and the 11 emerging economies and some industrialized countries: Argentina, Australia, Brazil, China, India, Indonesia, Mexico, Russia, Saudi Arabia, South Africa, South Korea, and Turkey. The EU is also a member of the G20. The G20 is a global economic organization that has grown to the size of today after gradual development. In fact, the G20 evolved from the G5. In 1973, the G5 was made up of the United States, Britain, West Germany, France, and Japan. In 1976, Italy and Canada joined the G5, and the G7 was formally established. With the end of Cold War and the collapse of Soviet Union, Russia joined in 1997, and the G7 became the G8. In 2008, when the international financial crisis broke out and spread, the G20 was finally upgraded to a World Leaders Summit. The G20 does not have a permanent secretariat. Its agenda and activities are established by the rotating presidencies in cooperation with the membership. A troika, represented by the country that holds the presidency, its predecessor, and its successor, works to ensure continuity within the G20. Logos can often convey the spirit and purpose of an organization. Let's take a look at the G20 logo in recent years. In 2016, G20 Summit logo uses 20 lines to depict a bridle-shaped outline. The bridge signifies that the G20 has become a bridge for global economic growth, international cooperation, and future-oriented win-win cooperation. The O in the G20 logo embodies the spirit of solidarity and cooperation among all countries. The Chinese seal symbolizes Chinese traditional culture. The next section will discuss the achievements made by the G20. The first achievement of G20 is economic growth. All summits have been committed to achieving strong and sustainable world economic growth in a coordinated way. The second achievement of G20 is development. Development is a constant theme. The emphasis on eradicating widespread and extreme poverty is consistent. And the greatest change is the emphasis on sustainable human productive lifestyles. The third achievement is structural reform. The G20 has also made tremendous contributions to the structural reform. Since 2008, the G20 has attached increasing importance to structural reform year by year and made continuous efforts. The structural reform agenda became clear in the St. Petersburg summit in 2013. The last achievement is entrepreneurial employment. Successive summits have put jobs at the heart of the agenda. The London summit clearly proposed to restore economic confidence and economic growth and recovery in the labor market. The Toronto summit emphasized that strong employment growth is very important. The St. Petersburg summit put forward to ensure that the quality of employment at the core of economic recovery. As a responsible emerging country, China has been actively cooperating and making contributions to building a more equitable and orderly global economic order. China has always attached importance to and actively participates in G20 cooperation. Chinese leaders attended all the G20 summits and contributed Chinese wisdom and Chinese solutions to the improvement of global economy. China also taken an active part in dealing with the global crisis. For example, China has always opposed trade protectionism and paid close attention to contradictions in the international community, especially the interests of developing countries. These all show that China is a responsible country. China is also committed to promoting the construction of a more inclusive and innovative global economic governance to gather wisdom and build consensus. The G20 does not only hold meetings, consultations between the leaders, but also includes forums such as B20, Combined Consultation, W20, Women, Y20, Youth, C20, Civil Society, etc. These activities promote globalization and respond to the challenges of globalization. Next, we will discuss China's initiative in G20. Firstly, in 2020, President of the People's Republic of China, Xi Jinping, delivered a speech at the G20. Here are some remarks by President Xi. The outbreak has disrupted production and demand across the globe. Countries need to leverage and coordinate their macro policies to counteract the negative impact and prevent the world economy from falling into recessions. I want to call on all G20 members to take collective actions, cutting tariffs, removing barriers, and facilitating unfettered flow of trade. Together, we can send a strong signal and restore confidence for global economic recovery. Secondly, China adheres to open cooperation and safeguards the multilateral trading system. President Xi Jinping says that we should firmly maintain free trade and a rule-based multilateral trading system. China is in favor of necessary reforms to the World Trade Organization. The key is to maintain the core values and basic principles of the World Trade Organization, such as openness, tolerance, and non-discrimination, and safeguard the development interests and policy space of developing countries. It is necessary to persist in extensive consultations among all parties, proceed in an orderly manner, and refrain from single talk. Finally, we need to preserve the spirit of partnership and strengthen macro policy coordination. The spirit of cooperation is the most valuable asset of G20. No matter what difficulties we encounter, the G20 should unite and overcome difficulties together. All parties should strive to promote a strong, balanced, sustainable, and inclusive growth of the world economy. Okay, so let's do a quiz to refresh what we have learned for this section. Okay, let's look at the answer. Is your answer correct? The answer is C, D, C. And that's all for the day. Thank you.